as entrepreneurs, we want to grow great businesses. We want to make a huge difference. But there's one big challenge that we all have. We actually have to work with other people. And we all really don't understand, at least many of my fellow entrepreneurs, including myself, is how to do that. And I've got, and the reason for that is each of us is unique. I mean, entrepreneurs, business owners, we don't come in one flavor. Our teammates, they don't come in one flavor. Our clients, our family members, and the opportunities to have the wrong communication, the wrong interaction is just so there. And one of the things that we have to do as really business owners is understand ourselves and then understand the other people we have the privilege of working with and serving so that we can build those great businesses. We can go ahead and have remarkable success. Well, for that, I've got a remarkable individual that's joining us today. And he's a behavioral profilist. And he works with business owners, but he also works with family members, spouses, teammates. He helps us all with self-awareness. And I met him at Mastermind Talks. This is Jason Gennard's great masterminds. It's actually harder to get into than Harvard. And Steven was one of the speakers there, and I was blown away. And not only was I blown away with the conversations that he and I had, we had a chance to have dinner together, but also the results that he was getting for his clients. And I'm one of his newest clients, and we've been working together, and it's really made a difference. So stay tuned. You want to understand how you can be more effective in one of the number one challenges as a business owner of this human dynamic so that we can make that difference and accelerate our success. I am John Bowen, and you are at AES Nation, and we're all here to accelerate that success together. Stay tuned.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Steven, I am so excited to have you with me.
Good to be here, John. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, one of the things that I always think of when you think of a profiler, you think of the TV, usually the criminal ones here. And I don't know if you do any of the criminal work, maybe with business owners, family members, there's those elements. But before we go in, because what I want everybody to walk away with is how powerful what you do is. What I'd like to do is kind of get some of that background of, how did you get to where you are? Because, I got to tell you, I don't know that many people that do what you do, and certainly not that many people that do it well as you do.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, I was actually reading people at age 12. I could tell when people were lying to me or somebody was inauthentic. And what's really interesting, my mother and my grandfather were so good at it that people called my mother a witch. And so
you could be called worse than that.
Yeah, true. So I've come to realize part of this is a gift, and the rest of it is also, learned. So I didn't start the behavioral resource group until I was 40. Before that, I had another business. And when I started the behavioral resource group, took me 7 months to get to the place financially where it took me 18 years in the other business. So I realized I had truly found my niche. I ended up going to college for psychology. Since I am a terrible test taker, it was very, very difficult. I actually switched to seminary because I wanted to help people. And then after that, started that other business, and then would work with clients in the business, but also they were coming to me for advice. And one day my wife said, "Honey, you need to get paid to talk to people." And I said, "I don't think anybody's going to pay me to talk to them." But of course, it wasn't but a few years after that that I went through my own profiling with somebody, and the noises went off in my head, and I said, "This is it. This is what I didn't even know you could do this. This is what I want to do." So I was really mentored by one of the best in the country for almost 5 months, and then my first client, I made $8,000 in 4 hours, and it was history since then. I've been doing it about 12 years now.
Well, and I think this is one of the things that we all as entrepreneurs, Stephen, have is that, when we find kind of our calling, our purpose, our passion, and we can really deliver value for someone else. As business owners, what we have is we have a real challenge. And I kind of jokingly started the introduction, this segment together with, we got to get along with people, and we got to work together. And one of the big things is to understand. And tell me about kind of how this whole concept of profiling, because initially I thought of it, the kind of classic time, is just simply as when you're hiring someone, as you're sorting through. But the dynamics, I have the privilege of working with some extremely successful entrepreneurs, and and as they have more wealth, all the way up into the billions, it seems to make the family challenges even more. And the awareness, that self-awareness there, and then team members. I've had the privilege of being on a number of teams that are high performing, and and really what you do works in all those situations. But give me kind of a big picture of how they work, and then we're going to dive into a specific example.
Yeah, so human beings are interesting because they really never change the way they do things. What's wonderful about my assessment system is that I measure everybody in different levels, depending on which one you want. But in the end, I'm measuring how their emotions are set in them. And there's 4 primary emotions. I like to say anger, optimism, patience, and fear, or mad, glad, sad, and scared. And when you get these emotional measurements, I can really tell how you're going to do things in the world. The world, I mean, there's 2 dimensions. There's the outer world and there's the inner world. So how you see yourself, inner world, how you see others, outer world. How are you going to act based upon those intensity levels or a lack of intensity? I'm also measuring, what matters to you in the world and what you're driven to pursue in an effort to lessen the tensions that are created when you can't have certain things. And so there's some people, they want to be in charge because they need to be in charge of their own destiny. They need to be in charge of their own life. But in their behavior set, because of their way emotions are, they don't take charge. So you could see how that can create a conflict. And so how are they going to get in charge when they don't take charge? Well, I'm able to figure all that out, and I could actually explain to somebody how this person's going to play out in any given circumstance. And I'm right over 85% of the time, which is actually pretty high. I think if AA had that rate, the government would fund it. And so it's a very powerful system of helping you not only understand yourself, but others that you may be working with or living with.
Well, no, this is great. And, and I've had the privilege of using you, Stephen, with our team as we've been we're in the process of scaling up multiple businesses. And, it's just been invaluable because most recently we really had 2 very different people that were we could hire either of them. As a matter of fact, we made the offer on one without telling the other one because we wanted to make sure it was a done deal. And I think he signed the electronic signature for the independent contractor agreement within 15 minutes. He had a record for how quick. So, but kept the other one as we're continuing to expand that, possibly, he would be a great candidate as well. But one of the deciding factors was really having you kind of confirm, and then just a little nuances that we didn't capture on the profiling. But one of the things when you and I have talked about is, the power of self-awareness too, because right now I'm in the process of getting a new executive assistant, and one of the things you encouraged me to do is really get a better understanding of me. And what we thought might be interesting for this, our podcast together to share with our fellow entrepreneurs is really this self-awareness. And have you profile me? I've taken, maybe talk about, Steven, kind of what it was that I took, and then, a little bit of the results so that we can help other people understand that process so that they can, whether with you or with someone else, create this self-awareness, and then we'll go into how to incorporate this into your business as well.
Sure. Well, you took 3 separate assessments. The first one you took was a behavioral analysis, and it's actually built upon the DISC model in the fact that it measures 4 primary emotions. You also took an attitudes assessment, or a driver assessment, which really measures what you desire within the worlds. And then you also took what's known as an HVP, which basically gives me understanding on how and what you pay attention to in the world, and then your bias scores against what you're paying attention to, negative or positive. So those are the assessments you took. And I can do, a kind of a very quick rundown on it. Obviously, these 3 assessments take a 90-minute debrief to give you all the information, but I can skip on these.
Yeah, why don't you give us a high-level kind of walkthrough? Because I think one of the things, when I was first meeting you, Steven, one of the things that I was hearing, I heard your presentation. I go, this is pretty interesting. And, one of the things that I want to do is I want our businesses to be as effective as possible. So I need to understand myself. I need to understand, the teammates. I want to have the right assembly of people, the dynamic, my family and the relationships I have. So I was really excited about it. But then where it became very interesting, I was sitting with, after you and I talked to a number of your clients, and they were calling it life-changing doing this. So yeah, let's walk through that kind of at a high level, but do it justice so everybody can kind of get a flavor of how it works, and I'll be the example, if you will.
Okay, great. So I'm going to look first at your emotion set: anger, optimism, patience, and fear, and I'm measuring them on a scale of 0 to 100. Once we cross 50, then it's called the energy line. Then the energy of the emotion is in play. There are 2 sets of scores here. One is your character base, which means what your brain decides to do in a given environment in an effort to succeed in it and survive it. Now, when we're born into the world as babies and into families, the first thing our brains do is negotiate the territory, and then they've got to figure out how to survive that territory, because we're animals, but we're higher animals, so we're survivalists. And so depending upon what you're facing in that environment, you'll pick survival tools. And so this is automatic, so I'm measuring your unconscious self. This is how you tend to be unconsciously, or what I like to call your default position in the world. Both of your graphs are similar. You basically take no prisoners. You have a style that really attacks the world. And what I mean by that is your highest emotion is your anger emotion. It's a 90, and everything else is below 50. So this is a pure style which puts you in a category of less than 2% of the population. Now, by itself, it doesn't mean anything. But when we put you with 100 people, there might be a couple more in that group like you. Odds are the rest of them, not even close. So that makes it interesting, because when you're trying to identify with people, we look for clues. We look for things we see in ourselves. And when you do that, you don't see much in other people that resembles what you've got going on in your own brain. So this makes you what we call sitting in a position of taking. And here's what this means. Your brain believes that if you desire something that lies outside of yourself, you need to take it by force, in a sense. In other words, if you don't go get it, it's not going to show up in your driveway. That's how your brain works. So when you see what you want, your brain positions itself to basically go get it. The majority of people in the world wait for it to show up, which sets you apart. You also have a huge independent streak. So this means independent, self-willed, stubborn, very in need of freedom and autonomy in the world. And so when you look at the rules of the world, your brain assesses these rules and then makes the decision whether or not that rule is worthy of you to obey it. Other people may look at rules and think, oh, it's a rule, we should obey it. Your brain says, that's a stupid rule. Why would I obey that? If you see that rule as unjust or unfair or not right or something wrong with it, your brain immediately stands against it, which puts you in a category of needing to do your own thing because it's difficult to submit to other people that you don't respect their intelligence or they really don't know what they're talking about. So this makes you somewhat of an emotional lone ranger in the world. I don't know how much sense that's making to you. I haven't talked to you about any of this yet.
Oh, no, it's interesting to say that. It's one thing when, when we're talking about, our favorite subject, most of us, is ourselves. I think pretty much that's a universal truth. And, as I'm thinking, I'm going, the one, the initial where we're talking about the take no prisoner, I'm not sure the anger line. I think I got a great life and life's really good, so I don't think of anger, but I do think that I'm really big on visualizing things and just going and doing it because
absolutely,
I just think it's a waste of time so often. So many people, go through life really, couch surfing and expect something to happen, and
right,
and there's an opportunity there, and I think I would imagine that for many entrepreneurs, certainly. Starting, I'm in Silicon Valley, as founders of companies, I've started a number of companies now, and some, very successful, some, we pivoted along the way a couple of times. And then on the independent side, that one, I've had up to 400 employees. I've had the big office and all the building and all that kind of stuff. And global headquarters, my pool house now for all the virtual businesses. So very much and no employees. It's all independent contractors. It's all project based, and have about 50 people working with us. So I love the collaboration, but I also really want to have that flexibility, and I'm not looking to the normal bureaucracies, working inside large corporations. So, what I'm hearing, is pretty aligned with what my, my own, if I put the mirror up and look back at myself, I think it sounds, very close to, not close to what I am.
Yeah, well, people misunderstand the anger emotion. They think anger, that sounds, bad. Anger is the emotion we use to get results. And so if you're saving somebody's life and running into a fire, it's the anger emotion doing it. If you're defending yourself, it's the anger emotion doing it. It's the emotion that steps in and steps up. The patient's emotion, falls in and falls down. It's completely different. And so you're all results orientation. You're all very driven to reach a goal and to take what you believe is an opportunity for you, or what you believe belongs to you in the world. So if somebody came to you and said, man, I'm having a hard time getting, I can't find a job. You're like, where the hell are you looking? Because your style, can just go get one as a rule. I've seen people out of work for 4 years, and I'm thinking, you don't own a lawnmower? I mean, I don't understand this. And that's how your brain works. You also are hyper flexible. Some people call that impatient. Some people call it flexible. It means you can turn on a dime. So your emotions are like a Corvette. So if you come upon the exit you're supposed to take and you didn't realize you were supposed to take it until you were upon the exit, you can take the exit without flipping the car. I spoke to a gentleman this morning. He was a train So he's on a track. So if somebody says turn right, he can't because the track's going straight. He has to wait until that track organizes him around back to the position he needs to be in, which takes a lot longer. So you are very functional in the instant, but might get bored in the constant. And so it's a very powerful ability to rise to the occasion very quickly. You're better at sprinting than you are at a marathon, emotionally speaking. So you're what we call the obtainer rather than the maintainer. Once you build something and you've accomplished it and conquered it, you're like looking for the next thing. Your brain wants to move on unless you create something else within the same dynamic that allows you to experience something different. Because your brain, basically, John, is never satisfied.
Stephen, let's just stop for a second because I want to bring it to everyone else because I mean this is very useful and I think you captured me. Well, and I don't know if there's anything else you want to dive into, but I want to show.
Yeah, we'll spend time with other people here.
Yeah, well, and let's go because okay, we're looking at kind of I'm a take no prisoner, very independent, and willing to turn on a dime, that pivot type thing, to be flexible. And I use the term all the time, rise to the occasion, because I want my team to do that too. And when we look at that, and this is for everyone, for you too, as my fellow entrepreneurs, you're doing it, we're all going to be different. We're all wired different. We're all a little weird. We're all wired different. And what Stephen helps out is, helping us gain that. And Stephen, how would I use this information? I mean, how do you see your clients using this information to, because what we're all about here is we want to help fellow entrepreneurs be very successful. And, when you go through this process and, and offline, we're going to go into more detail, do the 90 minutes and so on. But I want to how can someone who's just getting all this information go, hey, that's me? Because I know the way over the supermajority are going to say, that's me. Now what? How do I use this?
Well, it depends on what is in your way. Sometimes there are things in our way, and when we look at our emotional dynamic, I like to say it this way: if you're a tomato, find a salad. If you're a hammer, find a toolbox. We don't like hammers in the salad. You are a hammer profile, so you're better in a toolbox. When we're a hammer, everything around us can become a nail. And so because of that, you're going to have a certain default strategy for gaining and winning within the world. Some people you cannot be you with because it would be too strong. Now, most successful people have figured out how to adapt to certain circumstances for success through a process of trial and error. And by nature, you also, John, are a trial and error learner. So we learn because that didn't work. So now we do it differently. Some people have less emotional intelligence than other people, and that's going to play a huge factor into whether or not they get this quickly. But for instance, somebody who's very driven and very strong lacks the patience to negotiate or wait or get the ducks in a row in a situation. People that are very influential, or they operate out of their limbic system more than their rational brain. You're a left-brained analytical type. So you're very rational, you're very logical. The people that are emotional, they make decisions based upon how they feel in the moment. So as soon as that feeling changes, guess what? The decision changes with them. And that can be difficult when you have people working for you that are on train tracks, because now they feel like all they are doing is trying to keep up with the changes. When a person is aware that they tend to do this, then they change the strategy on how they approach things. Instead of making a decision based upon how they feel, from now on, they make a phone call and they talk to a logic left-brain person and say, here's what I'm thinking, what are your thoughts? And that person might come back and say, well, you remember what happened last time you tried this? You didn't like it. And then they bring them kind of back to their rational brain and help them walk through that. Then they can go back and make that decision if they believe they still need to, and that decision can stick now, when before it doesn't. And I've seen clients lose really good people simply because they got tired of them in their indecisiveness or wrong decision making, and they were smart people.
Yeah, no, this is so valuable for all of us, Stephen, because what happens is, and I see this, I because of, who I am, shiny new things are, it could be businesses, it could be, technology, it can be all kinds of different things. And, when I've assembled my team to help me on that. And I have 3 words I'm always focused on. Focus is number 1, simple and elegant, because I can tend to make things very complicated because I can, expand and so on. And understanding who you are and putting in those. And then I have, for example, and I'm giving these examples of what I've done, but, for you, my fellow entrepreneur, I have a COO. He's been with me for 6 businesses. I won't let him go. He's in his 70s. He runs 5 miles every morning, type thing, and he's in great shape and so on. And because he does what I'm not good at, and I have the rest of my senior team is that too. And this is, once we become self-aware, and we can do it. I just turned 60, so I've had. Even when I didn't want to be self-aware, Stephen, people kind of pointed things out along the way. And knowing this stuff is just so helpful, not only for you, but then as you're building your team out, also understanding the family relationships. And, I kind of wonder why, this doesn't happen more. People aren't doing this because I really haven't heard as large a group using this. And it may be I just wasn't paying, aware. I see people doing like Discord or one of the test type, Stephen, where, they kind of do it as it's in a, probably the most common is a hiring one. They just kind of do it, but it's, part of that bureaucracy type thing.
Yeah. Well, people, they just don't think about it. They're busy, they're working, they've got some intuition, and they've gotten some results. And so if it isn't broken, why am I fixing it? Tends to pervade in that world. The people I'm now spending the majority of my time working with really care not only about the business, but the people in the business. And those are the people that really focus on this more than people that are just more bottom line driven. To give you an example of working with a team, I had a client several years back that we did 8 leaders in the company. One of them was the controller of the business. And I got the graph and I said, oh my God, this doesn't look right to me. Now, this is my intuition coming in, because remember, I'm a behavioral profiler first. I just use assessments to target emotions. Then I do my magic after that. But I said, we need to probably switch this guy out. He goes, why? He's been here 6 months. Everybody likes him. Everything seems to be good. I said, I have a feeling you're losing more money than you think. And he said, well, money's up. Things look good. I said, can you trust me? Because I had just profiled 8 people and nailed them. And he was shocked. And so he said, okay. I said, let me get you a CFO in here. So he paid me $18,000, okay? And I handed him a guy on a platter, basically. Within 7 weeks, they were saving $48,000 a month.
Yeah.
And after a year and a half, they saved over $1 million. And needless to say, they let this other clown go. And to this day, I don't know why I had that check inside of me when I saw that profile, but this happens to me over and over again. I had a client disregard what I said. They hired the guy. It cost them $700,000 over 1 year. They hired me to speak at their national sales conference and then introduced me as the man we failed to listen to.
Well, I think it's so important because people, it's certainly the classic interview I'm going to go to, it's just such a terrible way of seeing an individual, and so many people hire off that. And Stephen, understanding kind of who we are, or someone we're looking to work with, or do anything significant with, is just so important. Let me go. I want to change to another segment, and I call it the Book of the Day segment, Steven. And you wrote a book, and let me pull it up on the screen, the Amazon shot. You wrote a book called The 4 People Types and What Drives Them. You mentioned it earlier, the mad, glad, sad, scared. Tell me a little bit about the book.
Okay, so the book really is a deep dive. It's what I call my playbook to understanding human behavior. It's a deep dive into the 4 orientations of people, which is anger, optimism, patience, and fear. And when that becomes the highest rated emotion in a person, then they are going to act a certain way. I break this down so succinctly. It's over 300 pages with graphs. It's really got the science in there, and it's easy to read. I break that down so you understand what drives people. I even put conversations into the book between a dominant husband and a passive wife, which happens most of the time, or vice versa, but dominant and passive tend to come together. In attraction, because we attract opposites behaviorally, we attract similarities in our attitudes. And so I break these things down, and I've had people email me, say, I'm on my 5th reading of this. It's become my Bible. And one of them was a police officer up in Boston who uses it for his work and his police work. And he says it's been invaluable. So I break all that down. I break down the 7 different value streams: theoretical, regulatory, altruistic, political, individualistic, economic, aesthetic. I break all those down to show this is what these type people are seeking in the world. And it really gives you a full-bodied view of the human brain and human behavior. And as you're reading this book, you're going to be like, oh my God, that's my sister-in-law, or oh, that's so-and-so. And all of a sudden, clarity happens. And now you know what they need from you in order to actually hear you. Because you have to remember this one fundamental thing about people. We never see them as they are. We see them as we are. And because of that, everybody is skewed. When you can make that one adjustment, life will change, not only for you, but the people you interact with mostly. And that's really what the book is about.
No, it's a great tool. I'm going to recommend it for everyone. And let's go to the next segment, which is resources. And Steven, I'm going to pull up your website, the behavioralresourcegroup.com. And again, as always, you can go to AES Nation. You'll have all the show notes, the transcription, and all the links that Steven and I talk about. But tell us a little bit about what's there and how people can learn more about what you do.
Well, the Behavioral Resource Group is a pretty simple site. It used to be just stevesisler.org and the Behavioral Resource Group, and there wasn't a ton on it because my websites are not for advertising purposes. People go there only because they've decided they're going to work with me and they want to see if I'm online. So that's been the model. So when you go there, there's a video where it shows me working with people in a group setting, in a mastermind setting, helping them understand the behavior with spouses and business partners. And there's testimonials there. And then you can go to a page that really gives what we kind of do. There's a behavioral mastermind that's starting up this year. That's something new. But there's also, you can connect with me through the scheduling tab if you want to go through the profile. It's not really there to do. freebrg.com, you could take a free test. It gives you basically 4 pages. It's a partial, gives you a little bit of insight and maybe about yourself. But you have to upgrade to actually work with me. We have some others on staff that are analysts as well. Jair Rodriguez, he's a great analyst. He's just been trained personally by me. He has a gift. And so, he's there for utilization as well. But what we mainly offer is profiling services where you have a spouse or a family member or yourself or your team, and you want them to be part of this analysis process, you'll have your own Dropbox set up, and all your employees or whoever will be in there. And then everybody schedules calls, and we work around that. Many times I go out to the organization and work with them on that level. But really, that's all that's there. It's a way to connect, see that I'm legitimate, and that there's people, clients in 18 countries working with us right now.
No, that's great, Steven. Let me do I appreciate you joining us and sharing this and picking me apart in front of 10,000 of my close friends here. But let me go with kind of the key takeaways. When I'm looking at this, and what I see over and over again is, everybody's a little weird. We're all a little different. And one of the things Steven said that I think is so important is, we see everybody through our own lens, our bias. And, because we're one way, and when we look at someone else, we're looking at it from that. And it's very easy to be judgmental, which is not necessarily very good for, collaboration, interaction, and so on. And to the extent that we can understand ourselves first and others, so we can create that alignment and really achieve what we're looking for, it's huge. And I'm going to encourage everyone to go ahead and do the self-assessment yourself. I mean, you can reach out to Steven. Phenomenal job. He's been a great resource, for our company. We're just getting started, but we're going to bring him in, for the whole group, because we're all people, and we all have the framing that we want to make a difference, but we're going to approach it in different ways. And by bringing the strength of the organization together, there's no stopping. Your clients, your future clients, they're counting on you. Don't let them down. Let's go out and make a huge difference. Wish you the best of success.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. AESNation.com.